How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Banker Next Door. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting article in Bank Director that looks at do people not trust their IT departments? It's very, very interesting. So what's that you say? No one trusts IT? What? Yes, so we're going to be looking at this very interesting article here from Bank Director. It's titled, "In a Room Full of Bankers, Almost No One Trusted Their IT." If technology feels like it's underperforming at your bank, the issue usually isn't the tools, it's the leadership behind them. Very interesting, you say. So let's get into this. So at a recent session with the Pennsylvania Community Bank executives, we posted a simple but powerful question. How confident are you in your bank's ability to turn IT investments into business outcomes? Only 12% said they were very confident. Banks have never spent more on technology, but most are still left unsatisfied and frustrated at the end of the day. 9 times out of 10, this isn't a tech problem, but a leadership and alignment problem. So what's the missing link here? Well, one bank we work with had accumulated significant tech debt despite investing in several best-in-class platforms. The frustration wasn't due to the tools themselves, but rather a lack of alignment between technology decisions and business needs. The CEO explained, "We bought a Ferrari when we really needed a Ford Explorer, and now we're stuck maintaining something that we can't fully use." The issue was that these tech applications weren't a good fit, and the departments these solutions were designed for were left out of the selection process. During our session, 56% said they were only somewhat confident in seeing outcomes from IT investments. At the end of the day, this is a people problem, not a technology problem. The bank's business objectives are usually separate from the IT department's project list, but IT can't just support the business anymore. It has to help drive it. Yes, absolutely. Bring the right leader to the table. So technology has quickly become so complex that having a strategic IT leader is now a necessity for most banks. But when your IT leader doesn't understand banking, you can't expect them to build a coherent IT strategic plan, properly prioritize IT initiatives, or focus on outcomes and not just operations. Many banks have never defined what a good IT leader should do. So they end up with someone who's great at solving problems, but never asked to drive outcomes. So now let's shift the question. So if you want your IT to be tactical, ask them tactical questions. But if you start asking questions like, how will this help us operate more efficiently? You'll begin to see the bigger picture and discover how strategic your IT leadership actually is. So evaluate if your questions create accountability and alignment, because in the end, you can't spend a lot on IT and still fall behind if leadership, alignment, and accountability aren't all there. So what if what if your IT leader isn't strategic enough? Well, you may have a capable IT manager who works hard, responds quickly to issues that pop up, and knows the intricacies of your core. But if they can't translate technology into business impact, they're not the kind of leader your bank needs right now. Banks should be wary of conflating technical talent with strategic leadership. Yes. Many banks promote their best technician into a chief information officer role and expect them to lead at the executive level. But running IT infrastructure well doesn't mean they're prepared to shape business strategy. Strategic IT leadership requires someone who understands your operating model, sees around corners, and prioritizes technological investment based on real business outcomes. So, what is the right kind of IT leader? And is it hard to find and retain them? Well, the intersection of banking and tech strategy is a narrow lane, and the talent pool is thin. Even when you hire the right person, they often grow stale over time working within the four walls of one institution. That's why more banks are turning to outsourced IT leadership, not as a stopgap, but as a deliberate strategy. Done right, this model brings in fresh thinking, cross-industry insight, and executive-level guidance without adding a full-time executive headcount. But whether your IT leader is internal or external, they need to be more than a project manager. You should expect a clear technology roadmap tied to your business strategy, not just a list of upgrades. So you should evaluate IT based on whether it's helping you grow, reduce risk, and improve efficiency, not just whether systems are up and tickets are resolved. You should expect your CIO, in whatever form they take, to challenge assumptions and push the organization forward, not just keep it running. If technology feels like it's underperforming at your bank, the issue usually isn't the tools, it's the leadership behind them. In a world where your revenue, efficiency, and customer expectations are all under pressure, you can't afford to leave IT stuck in a reactive tactical box. So again, I love this article because I loved it's some of the things that it points out that, you have a lot of problems, right? Like banks fall into this trap where they maybe fall in love with a product, or somebody, a fintech or a consultant or somebody comes in and pitches them on this idea and says, you know what, your bank really needs to have this technology because it's really going to help you drive lending or some line of business or something, right? And the bank ends up spending a fortune, just like the one bank executive said in the article here. We bought a Ferrari when all we needed was a Ford Explorer, and now we're basically stuck with this Ferrari that we're having a hard time maintaining, and we're not really getting the performance out of it. And so many times banks fall into that process, and there's a myriad of reasons why things don't work. Buying the wrong product, poor oversight of the product, poor project management, poor training of the employees, poor implementation, cost overruns, delays, the technology just not living up to the promises of what was put up there on the front end. Just bad leadership, leaders who just aren't good at, certain kinds of projects and things like that. So there's a myriad of reasons why these things fail. But what you have to understand is that there is a very high failure rate with these tech products. And this is why I think a lot of banks, when asked, how confident in your bank's ability to turn IT investments into business outcomes, only 12% are very confident. And that's also because, again, most of the IT professionals being hired at banks, they're great at all of the day-to-day stuff. Like they're great at maintaining the hardware of the bank, the software of the bank. They're great at dealing with the bank's networks, with cybersecurity, getting employees set up so they can work remotely, all this kind of, they're great at all that kind of stuff, right? But when you come to them and you say, listen, this is our strategy, and we need to drive this line of business, and we're thinking about picking up this type of software platform, or maybe bringing this technology in to help drive, maybe it's payments business, right? You're like, we have to drive the payments business. Unfortunately, a lot of your IT people, they understand the technology, but they don't understand the business strategy. They don't understand the business models. And you also have on the other end, you have a lot of people in the C-suite that maybe understand the business model and they understand the strategy, but they are clueless when it comes to the technology. They're clueless when it comes to the cost and how long it's going to take. And they think that, oh, well, this person came in and talked to me, and they told me that, oh, hey, we could do this, this, and this, and it's only going to take this amount of time. And so, they go point back to the IT department and say, you guys just need to make this happen, and the IT guys are sitting there with their heads spinning going, well, yeah, okay, we can implement this. I don't know if it's really going to work or do the things you really think it's going to do. So, but ultimately, what do you really have? You have this breakdown. You have this failure to communicate, just like if everybody remember, I'll date myself with Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. If anyone remembers that classic line. But, again, what happens is a lot of the leaders, maybe some consultant comes into the bank, or maybe one of the board of directors is really hot on something, and they're basically pressing the manager of the bank. You need to be in this line of business, and you need to do this, and you need to make this happen. And so maybe they go out and they say, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe they agree with them, and they come in, but they don't really know how to do it. And they try to implement it. It becomes a half-hearted implementation. And it just, the whole thing just gets messed up and falls apart. And why does that happen? Well, a lot of times it's because they didn't take the time to do the research they needed to do on the front end. They didn't go out. Maybe they should have gone out and done a focus group with some of their customers. They should have brought in the different departments. They should have brought in, accounting. They should have brought in IT. They should have brought in lending. They should have talked to these different departments and basically got feedback from them and asked them say, okay, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Now, you guys go do some research for us. You guys go look at what platforms, what technology out there you think is really hot. What are what are your counterparts at other banks telling you? What's working for them? What's not working for them? And get all that information in, and then identify some stuff, and then go out and interview the different technology providers. Get feedback from them. Are you working with banks? How successful has you been? What's the average? I know you're telling me this is what it costs, but reality, what's the average cost of this? What's it going to cost me to train employees? How long is this really going to take? And then based on all that information, then you go and then you make sure everybody's on board, and then you execute the plan. But unfortunately, a lot of times that stuff rarely happens. Because why? Well, because it costs a little money to go run a focus group, and it takes a lot of time to do this stuff, and this time may prove to be fruitless. You may spend 6 months, researching something and doing all this work, only to figure out at the end of the day that, hey, this really isn't going to work for us. This isn't going to happen. But I would make the argument that, putting the time in, putting that 3 to 6 months in to research and work on all this stuff is a lot cheaper than buying that Ferrari and being stuck with that Ferrari for say 5 years, 10 years at an insanely exorbitant cost. So, and again, my background, having an MBA, having a background in what's called business process management, what is business process management or business intelligence at the end of the day? Well, it's a bridging of the gap. It's the bridge that brings the corporate strategy and the IT, the technology together. That's what business process management does. And like you said, the talent pool is thin. There are not a lot of people out there that understand this stuff, that understand how to bring both sides of the house together, how to bring IT and business strategy together, put them together, and then drive that strategy for the bank. Use that technology, use that investment to drive the financial outcome of the bank, drive the revenue, drive the profit margin, keep the expenses down. There unfortunately there's not a ton of people out there that understand how to do all that stuff and bring it all together and get it done successfully. So, but again, I love this article here. I just thought that this was very eye-opening. And I could talk all day about this stuff. I mean, there's so many things in here that you could pick apart and you could point at, and you could do whole conversations on all this stuff. But with that being said, I hope people found this as interesting as I did. So if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. And as always, make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. I hope everyone has a great day out there. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again real soon.